just missed. I've just turned the microphone on now. You just missed. Important. So you're not orange, are you? Just to tell the people.
This is natural. This is the weekend's work. This is PE teacher vibes from last week. It's tough, isn't it?
I think I liked my PE teachers. They were all right. It was
just never had any time.
English teachers. Didn't get on with.
I'm PE and maths, aren't I? So I'm going to upset some.
What is it with what? And we'll start the rugby league bit in a bit. What is it with? Why was it? Our school we had PE and maths teachers. They were like the.
It's not like PE and geography.
Geography teachers at our school were the coolest. They were always the ones in the pub.
Yeah. Oh.
Wearing check.
That's me. I mean.
No, you were in the hay.
I was in the hay. I was at the right time.
Eating ice cream.
Mhm. Pistachio and almond.
I got an award for trying in PE, which I think tells you my level.
Oh, that's cute. What can we give him?
Got to give everybody something.
Yeah. Trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying, that's true. Welcome to 4020 Live. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got graphics. Look, they're on the screen and everything. They better be working now. If you're watching on Facebook, tough. It's like watching in standard definition. YouTube's high def. Join us on there. It's the future. Danika Priim is here.
Hi.
Slumming it with us. Now you're TV star. You've been on proper BBC television.
I know where my roots are. I know where I started.
Yes, it should say.
I'm back home now.
Like
back
an
home.
international selected, and it goes Wigan St Pat's. It should say 4020 Live.
Yeah, I know where
BBC.
I began.
Yeah.
I know where I began. Always come back home, don't they?
How was it on actual telly with proper cameras and running orders and professionals?
Well, when I arrived in the morning at 9 a.m. and then got into our Winnebago, actually, with our refreshments, bacon butties and coffees and makeup artists and...
Just like you.
When we did the Challenge Cup final in 2018, did we have a Winnebago makeup artists?
I think we had a real deal from Tesco's across the road.
Stand up railway,
Yeah.
They got thrown out of the stadium. Yeah, that was good. Did you nearly get thrown out of the stadium?
Oh, I'm low-key. I was low-key. There was potential for it. I kept pretty low-key.
You enjoyed it?
I loved it. Yeah, it was really good. It's nice, isn't it? I think, because me and Andy did it, it was more the sense of, you got to an age where you probably know retirements when you're not bothered who wins. You're not bothered whether you're down there or not. You're just bothered about the occasion, and we were both quite emotional about the occasion and the size of it. Which is a big key side, isn't it, about my age and where I'm at in my career. I would have loved to have been down there lifting it, but to be able to take it in as a neutral was just wicked. It was awesome, and Saints have been the better team. So, well done to them.
They're quite good, aren't they?
They're ridiculous, aren't they? Ridiculous. Really good. Like, they the analysis, they outplayed us, they've got really strong, their halves phase no longer playing, but Beth and Faye Jodie can jump in. They got centres Carrie and Amy, Rudgy in the back row. There's just, an abundance of talent.
But your player of the match, you haven't even mentioned.
Rudgy.
Rebecca.
Oh, well, no. So we gave it to Emily Rudge, but then Rebecca Rotherham I was deciding between Rebecca Rotherham and Emily Rudge. But I think my reason for Rebecca was because of her improvement. So 2018, 2019, she was playing for Saints. I bet when she plays fullback, which is Jodie Cunningham's international role. So, I reckon that's pressure, isn't it? It's like somebody now coming and stepping in for Caitlin Beavers. It's pressure. And I think she looked nervous when we played 18-19. But this season so far, she's so confident with the ball. She's set up a lot of tries. She's getting bashed.
Smashed.
Yeah, she's tiny. She's the same size as my thigh. She's literally the same size as my thigh. And she's getting smashed left, right and centre and getting back up again. Yeah, so hers was more of I think I was more impressed by her improvement rather than her actual... But Emily Rudge is one of those workhorses that never gets the recognition because she's so consistent and she doesn't stand out, if that makes sense. So every game she plays to her fullest. So she's never like she might get a try or a good break, but every game she plays like that.
Just say she's like James Roby, and then all the people out there will take that as like Danika Priim says Emily Rudge is the James Roby of women's
she's better.
League.
Minimum 8 out of 10.
And then they'll put that as the headline on the thing.
Plus, I mean, if you bang average 8 out of 10 over your skill set versus having 5, 6s and then the odd 9 or 10 out of 10, you want a high average, don't you, rather than
But then you don't get the
And that's
accolades
what I mean, yeah,
because
exactly,
it
so-
becomes the norm.
Yeah.
So now's a good time to ask. We go from the ridiculous high, not ridiculous because it wasn't merited, but suddenly the game has
We're live on BBC Two.
gone stratospheric very quickly. It's not only is it live on BBC Two, but it's a great
I think it
game,
was over 300,000 viewers.
great occasion,
Mm-hmm.
great summarising team.
More than we've got, slightly.
Just the women's game on a pedestal where
Yes.
it needs to be, leading up to an international soon against Wales, then a World Cup. We're all getting excited. This is the part of the sport that is going to carry the men's game, our saviour.
Mm-hmm.
And then this week we have 2 games in a supposedly called Super League, postponed because a doctor is not available. And we'd seen on Saturday night how important having a doctor
Yeah.
is available, and let's not diminish why the medical people are the first ones that we should be engaging at every game. What does that say about elite status if you can't run 2 of your games through I'm not going to even say an error, but the inability to get the basics right?
Yeah, so I've got a double-edged sword here. There's 2. So, first of all, had Saturday night not happened, and this would have happened, I think there would have been a lot more anger or disappointment than there has been. And it is. It's kind of one of those things where, as much as I want to be supportive of how far the women's game's gone, how much support we do get in general, you know, the BBC have been great. There's talks of Sky maybe coming and doing stuff like this. All of the above. And then we can't play those big games. We can't play the Sky games. We can't play the BBC games or put on a spectacle for those platforms unless we play the basic week in, week out games. So, I don't know, you build from the bottom, don't you? We've had these fixture lists for a long time. So, in terms of, there was a slight change in venue because we couldn't play at Wheatwood. So they had to change venues and find a central venue. But yeah, they've been in. It's just, I'm trying to be really positive about it.
So when were you first informed that your game that you were preparing for?
10:25 on Sunday morning.
Oh, you could have told me because I haven't bought me. You know.
But the thing is, it's a bigger picture than that. So it's like, we are not professionals. We don't do this for a job. So we all work. We all students, whatever else. But generally, good prep for a game. You keep out of the sun. You keep away from the parties and the alcohol and whatever else. And you rehydrate and prepare properly. Your game's on a Sunday, so you don't book anywhere to go watch the England football. You don't book anything in for the Sunday because you've got a game on and that's your focus. So you spend 48 hours. Mine really is from when I finish school on Friday at 3-4 o'clock up until the end of the game on a Sunday. That's my prep time. And, you know, maybe this week I was more fortunate because I knew I wasn't going to be playing. That I did spend Saturday out in the sun and enjoyed Ilkley Food Festival, which was wonderful. But I know a lot, like I spoke to Shona Hoyle, who plays for Castleford. Obviously, England national World Cup prospect. She didn't do anything with her weekend. She's got a son, you know, she's got a young son, and she didn't do anything with it. She just stayed hydrated, stayed out the sun, did everything, and that's the frustration about it because we're not paid to do it.
Yeah, because we've said before, and you didn't like the word sacrifice, but to everyone out there, that is a sacrifice.
Yeah,
You're
it
giving
is.
up a Saturday
It is.
afternoon.
When stuff like this happens, it is because you think the one thing that the RFL could do was have these things in place. However, that me trying to be nice towards it, we have had a COVID outbreak again, and we have one of the doctors is one of the Leeds doctors that I've seen on the side of the pitch. So, is that therefore the problem of not being able to feel the doctor? Have they had the doctors in place? I think I've heard on the grapevine that Wakefield were asked midweek if they could provide a doctor.
You're looking at me like I know.
No, I'm just saying I don't know where that's come from in terms of if that's the truth or not. So therefore, I don't want to say that's what has happened. But I've heard on the grapevine that Wakefield were asked midweek if they could provide a doctor.
But when we were having the big debate last week and the week before about elite academies and what constitutes elite and minimum standards, surely we cannot be calling Super League games off for want of a doctor.
Yeah, it's not just the doctor, is it, that they've got to have their pitch side training.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a really great thread on Twitter that I can't remember who liked it or retweeted it or something, but he was a doctor in the game, and he said, one, there's a shortage of doctors. Two, they've employed a physio for the academy, but he can't get his pitch side trauma training until October, which means he can't do a game yet. So there's the courses. So there's lots of very.
But there's a difference between a community club and a super league.
Mm.
You know, there's a lot asked of first aiders who will pitch side at all community games. They can't go ahead without first aids, and each club has a responsibility to provide lists of their first aids and put them on courses.
Yeah.
We're talking about the impact that the women's game has had on the sport, the political capital that's been used, you know, the great work that people like Tom Brindle have done to bring it to the... Now, how must he have felt when he realised that two of the games couldn't go ahead?
Having already had them cancelled because of COVID.
For something as preventable as not being able to find a doctor.
For me,
because it sounds as though, again, they didn't find out till maybe 10 o'clock on Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? So for me, I think, and genuinely it might just be the stage of my career or the fact I'm not looking for an England shirt this year, but I was frustrated because it's just annoying. It's just really annoying that we have to waste a weekend, and that's essentially what it was. Yeah. But there are girls that are needing to, you know, in 10 days' time, they're going to run out for in an England shirt against Wales. Now, whether you think that will be an easy game or it should be a nice training game or whatever you think it is, at the end of the day, England will be playing, and that is all you need to say, isn't it?
On television?
On Sky Sports, on a Friday night, as a double header with the men's All-Stars, that the occasion is huge again, and they need the best prep. So now some of them, because everyone has a bye week, it's going to be 2 weeks for some of them, and then their next game is going to be in an England shirt.
Well, there might be 3 weeks for them because not everybody played in the cup final either.
Well, exactly. It's just well, and then the week before, you know, we didn't play. So if we don't play on Sunday, the likes of Caitlin, Beavers, and Chloe and Amy Johnson, you go in a ridiculous amount of time without play, and then you can train as much as you want, and we hit each other in training. Don't get me wrong, we go full smash, but yeah, it's just really frustrating because we have developed so far, like you say, and I can wax lyrical about how great it is and how much we've come far, but then I'm like, is it basics, isn't it? Basics. It's basics. And what we have to do is now we have to just cancel the game. So our new physio, he works 40 hours in a private clinic. So he's working extra on a Tuesday, Thursday and a Sunday to be our physio. So it is an extra ask of people because it isn't a full-time post or it isn't, you know, it's not a club post, but I am really angry about it.
And there is a real disconnect here because, sorry, I jumped in.
That's okay.
You mentioned it's a double header, so I think we should talk about the men's half of it. And there is some stuff we need to praise this week. So all of those thinking it's got in a negative direction already. England's men will be playing the Combined Nations All-Stars at the same time that 3 Super League games have now been scheduled. So there's 2 things here. Well, 3 probably. One is the crowd is now already diminished.
Yeah.
Because 6 Super League teams are playing, and you would think a fair proportion of the supporters of those 6 Super League teams will be supporting their club that night. Particularly those who are season ticket holders of each of the home clubs, where they haven't had their value for money for all the reasons.
And they don't have to pay any extra to go.
So you're Sky and you're going, we're putting on this international, why are there only 3,000 people in the ground at Warrington? And the backdrop's awful and it doesn't sound great, it doesn't look great. Well, that's because there's 12,000 people who have been disenfranchised and can't be there. So what does that say about A, the dysfunction of the sport as a whole, and B, how much we're valuing this international experience? The other thing is, how many clubs are now going to release players? Because I know that those players can't play necessarily for their clubs if they're not playing in an international game. But you look at, for example, and I know you posed the question on social media, who should play for the All-Stars? Well, 2 for me who would be front and centre would be Chris Satay and Liggy Sow from Hull, who I think have been absolutely outstanding this year. Just the sort of test that you would want the England pack to have. Well, if you're Brett Hodgson and you're down to already 20 people...
Because no one's got any players left because they're not allowed to.
Do you really want to be saying we want to release those two players who are in banging form, very important for what we do, build a lot around them, for a game that actually, for us, is meaningless?
Yeah.
Why is this not a standalone weekend of International Rugby League?
Well, it is for women. Well, this is it, isn't it? I think we're going to use that excuse of COVID forever and ever, aren't we, in a day? And Super League, it's tight, isn't it, for turnarounds now? Games are getting cancelled because of COVID again. And there are questions as to whether these can be replayed or will be replayed. So there's a
that's why we went for percentages. We knew that was going to... See, again, I think hindsight is an easy thing to throw at people. But actually, once you bring in a percentage calculation, you're almost acknowledging that there are going to be times in the season where games cannot be played. Yeah. Therefore, the other thing to do while you're doing that is put a couple of weekends in the season to catch up on the games that you knew can't be played. What we're trying to do is cram all the games in, and the cancelled games, and the international games, and a World Cup. And it's like, what are we actually trying to achieve with this? It's so self-defeating. And it just shows that the sport at administrative level is totally dysfunctional.
It's basic communication, isn't it? It's basic communication. And that's...
There's also some people who bought tickets for the international who have now found that their clubs are playing on that night and are resentful of the fact that they bought a ticket for a game that they now don't want to see. And again, we don't want that in the build-up to the World Cup.
They don't want to go to Warrington.
I am really digging deep to be positive tonight. It might not come across.
We've got a couple of things you can be really positive.
I'll show you something positive. Oh, this is not for the viewers on Facebook. You won't see this, but the kit's nice, isn't it? The All Stars kit.
Oh, the kit's fantastic.
Yeah, the kit's lovely. It's really nice,
and it's for a great cause. £10 of the shirt is going to Mossy Massoy Foundation, which is brilliant. We do some things really well, and there are some positives, and absolutely no doubt one of them was Jason Gary, because in any sport,
what a guy,
what a story.
Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it? Because as a teacher as well, all you do is you hype up your kids, and if you see something good in a kid, all you want to do is support that, and the whole school, like, let's be fair, Queen Ethelburgers is not synonymous with rugby league, is it either?
It's not Outward Grange School.
No, exactly, which is also then opening. But what a kid! Like he literally touched the ball for the first time.
Well, first of all,
himself.
But I mean, he's 17 and he's not in the captain's role.
Yeah.
He turns up.
Gets a phone call in the middle of maths or something, doesn't he?
To help out, and all of a sudden he's playing. Not only is he playing, but he scores with his first touch. Not only does he score with his first touch, but the try that he scores is absolute quality. He's just skins Jake Connor.
I know, and of all people, like, of all the players to skin in your, do you know the thought about it? But do you not think that's an age thing? The confidence, the sheer confidence.
It could have gone one or two ways. Yeah. His nerves, he could have dropped the ball, or the confidence, he doesn't realise who he's running against. He just does what comes
got one
naturally.
aim. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But his coach is then out of his chair, and his teammates are hugging him, and then there's that beautiful clip on social media on the Friday morning when he goes in, and all of his teammates are making a huge fuss.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever sport you follow, that is a wonderful story.
Yeah.
We can create moments like that. So it's not all, let's just, have a go at those who organise a sport for the words piss up in brewery.
Yeah.
We get moments like that.
Yeah, there were so many moments like that, and it's hard, isn't it? Because my thing is the women's game. But in the women's game, we've got so many like little rare things like that, and it's not quite the same as it's not a Thursday night or a Friday night or whatever. But it is. Kid comes in, trains for a couple of weeks, makes Fran Goldflop, for instance. Caitlin Beavers was in the academy 2018. The first game of the season was against Bradford of the Super League. We were playing, Leeds Ranners' first ever official game. She gets called up from the academy because we've already suffered something, an injury. On she comes, and the rest is history. And I think it's a beautiful moment in the sense that, to back the whole academy thing, and the importance of that and the idea of that not going ahead was just absolutely ludicrous, wasn't it? And
it's again so badly handled in terms of it doesn't look
it
like
just
leadership.
makes you wonder if the person who, or the people, or, and I've got to be careful because obviously I'm still pretty heavily involved, but do you watch the sport and do you read the stories? Because how many people have come through the academy? You look at the likes, just at Leeds, you know, Alex Sutcliffe and Harry Newman and Jack Walker and Mikolai and, you know, the list is Liam Sutcliffe, Ash Hanley, all of them. Jamie Jones Buchanan was in the academy. You know, Rob and Kev all came through academy. And whether you stay at that club or you go off and you play at a different club, these kids have come through the academy status. You know, when you're breeding your own, and we're like, Jason, what a kid, you know, like, we haven't had to go to Australia, we haven't had to go to, you know, the Pacific Islands. We've got some essentially homegrown talent here.
From Kipax.
Yeah. Who walks on a pitch at 17 years old. And I like to think it's his age, because I think it's not an arrogance thing. I think it's just an age thing of that, not blasé, but just maybe just being young and a bit naive. He's on the pitch. He's like, I've got a job to do, and he gets the ball past. He's like, oh well, I've got to go over that white line. And he's like, I've got to get past that person. And I like to think maybe it's because I'm a teacher, maybe it's because I've got this blinkered unicorn and sparkles kind of vision about young children. But you know, I like to think that's where he's just like, that's my job, you know. And then afterwards he's gone, oh, I've just done that. You know, when it's been the penny drop moment afterwards, and the hype around him afterwards, and how the boys welcomed him back into school and everything like that. It was wicked. And yeah, if you think that the academy status doesn't work, I just think it's ridiculous, because it's just, there's so, the list is endless, isn't it?
But there was another issue that came out of that game that's equally as important. And again, you will be able to give us the perspective of the player, because we can talk as much as we like about the theoreticals. But Darryl Powell complained afterwards, with justification, that he'd lost a substitution because a 17-year-old kid had had the start to his career of his dreams, because he wasn't in the original 21-man squad, because they had 3, I think, pull out at the captain's run. So, you know, Jason's coming in with his lunchbox and thinks he's going to be training with the academy, and suddenly he's been told, you've got your kit for the game tomorrow night.
Leave your homework. You've got to do this.
But they get penalised for that. And we're moving into a part of the season in the men's game where we get 3 games a week. We already have every single club talking about injuries, not knowing who they're going to be naming in a squad. COVID clearly is affecting teams, and could strike at any moment.
Yeah.
What on earth is the point of making that ruling when originally it was brought in to stop
It was brought in for
betting problems,
yeah,
which is not an issue anymore? Surely, when we need every player out there we can, it's going to get harder and harder to get teams to name 21-man or 18 women's squads. How can you possibly penalise them?
Well, this is a you know, it's just stupid, isn't it? But this is something that's been ongoing. But you take into account, like, we've changed the rules, we've changed the scrums or whatever, we've adapted things, all because of the pandemic, all because of COVID. And again, it's one of them things that just I keep coming back to. It's like York, they women, I'm going to go back to the women again because that's what I know, they fielded Emma Hardy as their starting fullback at the final. Now, she'd not played one single cup tie, and therefore she shouldn't have been eligible to play, but because of COVID, those rules were null and void. Surely there's a similar thing going to, either through isolation, through, you know, these guys might be professionals, but they also have families, they have kids at school, they have partners that work. So at some point, your squad, not only because of injury or because of whatever else, because of the pure pandemic, your squad is going to be depleted in parts, and therefore you don't know that until the day or the day before or whatever else. And I just think it's ridiculous. Like, you need to move with the times, and that's something that, it's not even the times, is it? Because we're talking 12, 18, 6 months of, let's just assess where we're at, you know, does it really matter? You know, and then you say, look, we're gonna stop this because you're all gonna sing off the same song sheet. This is no longer gonna matter to you because we understand that it's quite difficult and there are injuries. But no, instead, what we're gonna do is
you're gonna penalise you.
Penalise you, and that's your fault that all your players are injured.
The other thing you've mentioned changing in rules. And got to get your take on the ball still, because clearly, again, it seems as though something has been brought in that has tipped the game over an edge. It's like we can't have scrums. Understand that. Bringing in 6 again. Okay, well that's going to change the nature of the game because we don't have scrums. We'll go with that. And we're bringing a change to the ball stealing rule, and then we decide we've made a mistake, but we're not going to revert back to the ball stealing rule till next season. Surely, if we have made a mistake and we've identified over a period of 8 or 9 weeks that it's not working, and in combination with everything else, we need to go back, why didn't we do it straight away? And then we have an incident in a game between Salford and Hull KR where a ball is stolen that doesn't materially affect the outcome of the game, but clearly has an influence on where that game was at the time. Yeah. And you're going, and of course, why? Anyway.
But as a prop, so I've come from rugby union where ball stealing it's allowed. You have rucks and mauls, but the one thing that I'm good at it's not many anymore. Cracking them a bit, but as a prop, I don't have to worry about carrying the ball in, hitting the line really hard, taking the meters, taking the tackle, hitting the floor, getting a good play of the ball, and carrying on. But now, as an added extra, I've got to think, I've actually got to have that extra bit of effort, which I know as a prop doesn't sound like very much, but I have to have that extra effort to make sure that doesn't happen. And luckily in the women's game, it's happened once or twice. It's not really big, but if you've made a mistake, I don't think the players would care if just somebody's rang up that at the start of the week and just went, all the players, all the teams, we're taking it out. Your coach walks in, boys, girls, women, whatever, that rules out, scrap it. Everybody like, oh, what? You'd have a couple of minutes where you'd probably be like, oh, that's ridiculous. You move on, and that's the thing that people don't realise. Nobody dwells on these things. The whole scrum thing, I was a bit like, I think Robbie Hunter-Paul said something stupid about in the women's final. We talked about obviously scrums not being in, and he was like, "Yeah, all the
fat boys,
the fat boys in the middle."
He said that on the telly.
Yeah, all the fat boys, and I was like, "Are you for real?" Now, don't get me wrong.
I can't believe he said those words.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong. It is a moment for the forwards to go in and take a moment. It is time, therefore, to take in all you and then give your backs a chance to play out wide or whatever else.
Like they do with scrums.
But you know what? I've played now. I've forgotten that scrums were a part of it because you adapt so quickly. Because you have to. It's the rules. You can't argue the rules. You can't argue the ref. You just do it, and that's what people need to realise. The powers that be just tell us, get rid of it. We'll adapt. We'll move forward.
I know this will be a daft analogy, but Headingley.
I remember it.
Right. Everyone remembers what it used to look like, but because the North Sound's been down for a few years on the Sound, you forget quickly what it did look like because it looks different now.
But it's just one of them things. But it's not even you forget and move on. It's matter of fact. If it's a rule or it's not, you have to play to that rule or not. So.
But what I don't understand is if you the analysis over 2 months is it doesn't work, and it's adding a dimension to the game that is detracting, and you want to change it. Yeah. Change it. Now Peter Volandis, and again we're not comparing like with like, goes.
Did he get an Order of Australian medal?
I hope so. Going to have a clamp down on head-high tackles. It starts now. Yeah. And, look, there's been a week's worth of disruption because people have been caught out and, it might be there today, but the aim behind everything is protection of the players.
But that's it for that week, a disciplinary panel.
For a couple of weeks, easy, don't they? People are going, actually, I didn't, they were moving into the tackle. But there's a rationale behind it. This is why we're going to do it. Yeah. This is why we feel we're passionate about player welfare and we've noticed something's been creeping into the game. We're going to do something about it. Not next year or in 3 years' time or when we get sued by somebody. We're going to actually do it now because we've identified it as a problem. We've identified it problem, ball stealing. Next year we'll do something about it. Why? Talking of which, because we mentioned Australia. We're going off in loads of tangents.
Did you say Salford versus Holland, not Hull KR, by the way? Because I think you were upset.
I did that when I was commentating. I got. Oof.
Oh no, yeah, it'll have been said.
I apologise. I apologise, Hull KR.
I'm sure I whispered the KR, but it just didn't come out.
No, you can't do that. It's not allowed.
Penny Crayon Love the cartoon. Says we can't change the law because of the World Cup. Not the best preparation for home nation players to revert to the 2020 law right now. We're just bugging it up, aren't we, basically?
Yeah, I think you'll find that the World Cup laws are not the NRL laws, so I'm not even sure we're going to have scrums in the World Cup. So, you know, how do we adapt to that? I just think if you've already made a decision, make a decision and don't delay implementing the decision. One of the great players of our time, Boyd Cordner, has announced his retirement. Sadly, age of 29.
Shame, isn't it? Why is it?
Second Sydney Roosters player to prematurely bring an end to his career because of persistent head injuries.
Let's take a minute.
How good has he been?
Just getting a bit emotional, you know. My boys, my team.
I mean,
It's
the
another
coach
crucial.
especially when you think you can add Brett Morris to that.
Yeah.
And, so that's three of the
cried
core
my
of
eyes
their
out.
team.
I cried my eyes out.
But you know, again, a really emotional press conference in Australia to announce his retirement. But the game suddenly is looking at welfare in a different light. So, firstly,
no, we've got to keep bashing people in the head. We've got to keep bashing people in the head, Phil.
how good a player was he from a player's point of view, and somebody who didn't play in a dissimilar kind of a role to the way you did?
It's that thing. I think it's that thing, isn't it? It's the consistency. It's a reliable consistency. You know that he's going to turn up. He's going to put his body on the line. It's that. I think is that he's got a real do or die, hasn't he? In the sense that, and hence why he has come about, because he gets his head in the wrong place, or he puts his head forward, and not because he's leading with it or he's stupid. It's because it is body on the line, and you want to. If you were to write a list of players, he's in your team, you know. And same with Brett Morris, which is again another, probably not the fastest, but another consistent player that was, you know, for the Roosters. And I think for me it's consistency, like above any skill, above anything else. You turn up week in, week out, and you perform. And if you don't perform that day, you get absolutely slammed for it. But because it's such an anomaly, and it's just, if I'm honest with you, it's just a bit of a sad season, isn't it, for them?
I think there's two things with that. One is Brad Fittler, who came out and said first person he rang for New South Wales was Cordner, because he needed to tell all the other players that Cordner was on board. He was that important to all the other players.
That's what I mean,
He's going to be a captain. He's the guy that I know you look up to. He's the bloke that we're going to build our ethos around. I can tell you, he's in the team. Right, put me down. I'll do whatever he wants. Spoke to Ryan Hall about Brett Morris, because clearly, teammates got the chance to see. And what he said. Can I say which you can read in the new issue of Fortnights out on Friday? He just knew exactly what he was.
Yeah.
And because he knew what he could do well, what was his role, and he perfected that, he was an absolute coach's dream.
Yeah, but that's it. As a player, and I think I was coached that into me when my very England early days by Chris Chapman is, you don't need to know. You need to know everyone around you and what their kind of role is in terms of where they'll be and what their job is to do. But the only thing I need to focus on is what my specific job was on that day. And I know I play best, as do many people, when you know exactly what your job is. And, I mean, as a prop, it doesn't often change. It's yards, play the balls. But then specifically against a certain team, or you pinpoint somebody else, or you know that they're going to target you, so you might have to adapt. Having players, he just knows his role. He knows his role. He's respectful of the roles around him and how they affect the whole game. But he performs his role to the best of his. It's just a very simple concept, isn't it? Know your role. And that's when I go back to us in the semi-final. We didn't play our roles. We got lost our heads, got scatty, and everyone was trying to do everyone else's job. Some people didn't turn up as part of their role. And that's where teams fall apart. You know, your team is made up of 13 essentially, isn't it? 17, 18, whatever. But beyond that field, if Courtney Hill doesn't turn up and perform her role, as a squad we are nothing. So it's the same, isn't it? It doesn't matter what position, I don't think, but yeah, just knowing that role and knowing exactly what your job is as that position is just such a crucial and simple thing that is very hard to come by.
Everything's simple. When she was
It's
down at the nines, did you ask her to try and get you in?
Yeah.
Bring you back.
Yeah, well, I just said, well,
Still waiting for the call.
do you know what, I didn't
They've
even bother.
expanded the teams. Though,
I wasn't
they've got
even.
more opportunities.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't even bothered about playing or. I was like, where's the stash? But then Courtney came back with stash that is this big. So I wasn't bothered about that. I was like, just give me some stash. You know,
Your team, she played for your team.
I know. I got so giddy. She's ace, isn't she? But no, I did try. I asked her. I didn't even care about playing. I just wanted to get either some good pictures or some good stash, and she didn't get me either.
It's all right.
Again, simple
Free
thing,
stuff, yeah.
simple job.
Well, this is why I reckon the RFL has made a profit last year, because they didn't have to pay for media food at Wembley, which, as we know, costs a fortune, or give any pens out.
No.
Because the amount of pens they give to the media every year.
Oh, I've never had an RFL pen.
Well, usually better for ones.
It works really well and then it runs out quite quickly.
I wouldn't know.
Can I talk about another player?
Yeah, because I don't know what I was going to ask about anyway.
Well, I don't know if anybody wants to interact.
No,
apart from
they're all
Paul.
watching Boris Johnson or Pullman versus. Because that's why people say, "Where's Sky?" It's the same place he always is. Where's Mark? He's in St Petersburg.
Is he?
I mean, he was in Warrington yesterday. Now he's in St Petersburg.
That's all right, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, he may not be. But, he might be.
Cathlon Dragons, top of the league.
They are top
Having
of the
a
league,
having
yeah.
a laugh.
Yeah.
Toulouse, top of the championship.
Yeah.
Good time.
Vive la France, yeah.
French Elite One final on Saturday as well. Watch it on live streaming. Arthur Morg. How good, how exciting. This is just the kind of player we should be, we should all be getting behind and glorying in the skill and the excitement level that they bring.
Yeah. I mean, how many games does it take to make a good play? How long does it take you to spot a good player, do you think? Is it when a team's doing well? Is it over time? Is it consistency? Is it a one-off special?
Well, with Gary
That's
Gary, it
what
was
I-
like 20 seconds. We're like,
Exactly.
he's
So
the
this is
greatest
what I
player
think.
ever.
This is what I mean.
But I think he's now put down a marker.
Yeah, fair.
He is one of the most exciting young talents, and he's got wonderful footwork, speed, and awareness.
Well, that's the thing, isn't
and
it?
he's playing either at fullback or at hooker, so he's doing it in two positions.
That's his footwork, yeah. But if you think, yeah, it is the footwork thing, which I am always in awe of, because my move forwards, it's just, the backwards is a struggle. But he breaks ankles for fun, if not his own. I don't understand sometimes how people move that swiftly. It's poetry in motion. But no. And what a quite a vast positions, isn't it, really? When you're a front row, well, it's not really that much. It doesn't matter now the scrums are not there. Or do you want to go at the very back? And there, you talk about the job role thing. To adapt to that, that's a skill in itself. Just an all round. I don't have it, so.
I think again we need to praise where praise is due, and every time I've seen him over the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's made a considerable impact on the game.
Before
whether
that,
he's come off the bench, or,
yeah.
and you just think, wow, if we can find some more kids like him.
But yeah, so that goes back to how old is he?
22. A babe.
Yeah. You're getting older and you think 22 is young, don't you?
I'm watching the sons of players that I watch playing. That's when you know you're old.
Do you think it's an innate thing, or do you think it's a confidence thing? Like,
Part of it's the coach that gives you the license to do it, and I just think it's nice to see Steve McNamara's brought him on slowly, and now he's sort of unleashing him more and more, and it's getting to the point where the player himself is now saying to his coach, "You can't really drop me."
Yeah.
So I was a bit reluctant. When do I throw you on? Do I give you a few minutes? Do I put you in the squad but not play you? And then we have to play you because we've got a couple of injuries. I might play you on the wing to start with you. And then the kid's given his head, and he goes, "This is what I can do." And the coach goes, "You're undroppable."
Yeah.
I think it's exciting because there's obviously a...
Do you think it's like, you're right, there's an undeniable skill. You can't deny the skill.
Yeah, no,
There's an undeniable skill, but it's also that the flash of what they needed. Like, something needed to
100%.
happen, and therefore, this kid looks great. I mean, he is great, you can't deny it, but it's come at a time where it was so crucial for them.
I also think they were in danger of becoming a forward-dominated, structured team to the point where creativity was a second.
That's what they had,
But you stick him in there, and a couple of them, Matthew Laguerre, who looks quite
Yeah.
good in the centre, and you suddenly think, actually, they're finding an identity. But I'm excited for France in the World Cup. I know England play them, but I'm thinking with people like him, if he's playing and he's fit and he's given the right role, suddenly they become more of a threat. We watched State of Origin. Unfortunately, we can't went to the result because the wrong team.
Have they closed down
absolutely thrashed.
Queensland Rugby League now? Of brave boys.
I think they all got a telegram saying.
what happened? I think,
Don't read everything into it. There's another 2 games yet. Don't matter what you
I
lose
know, but just for
by.
now,
That's all right. But what I was going to say was Jerome Luai.
still haven't said it, has he?
I can't. Who had one of the greatest debuts of anyone I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Toto, who didn't do too bad on the wing either. They could both, and should both, be lining up for Samoa against England in the first game of the World Cup. And you're going, wow. We are going to be so lucky that we got giddy because Tonga looked like they were going to break the monopoly of England, Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, we get giddy when they beat Australia, but when they beat us, it's like, oh, bloody hell.
So we're going, Tonga, who made the semi-finals. We've got Fiji, who made the last 3 semi-finals. We've got PNG, who are getting undeniably better because the Hunters are playing in the Queensland competition. We've now got, if they get the coaching situation right, some of these Samoans, and you're going, on the one hand, they play in England, we might not win. I'm a bit worried about that. And on the other hand, I cannot wait to see guys like this because, like Arthur Morg, they are so excited.
It's having that consistent playing time, though, isn't it? And the level that they're playing at, and you learn from the experience around you, which is only going to make.
But some people make it look innate, and others, it takes them time to get to that level and stay at that level. Luai, I think for me, made one of the most impressive debuts at the highest level he's ever played, and didn't compromise anything he's done for Penrith over the last 2 years. And that might be great coaching because he was told to do a role that he was comfortable with. It might be having even more great players around him. It might be having Nathan Cleary alongside him, so he doesn't have to do a lot.
Or it might just be the sheer.
But it might just be that he was so good at adapting to that level that some of it's down to him as well.
Well, I think it'd be sad as a player to not say it was down to that player. Like as any player, they play well, and everyone says, "Oh, the coach, they've done this, or the academy, or whatever." At the end of the day, there's only one person on that pitch that's playing for themselves, and that's the player. And whether you're, little Jason or whatever, but that player themselves has a natural skill or is really mouldable and adaptable that is then coached well. But I don't think anybody's going to turn up to a game and just think, "Oh, I'm going to be mediocre today."
No, but I think it's a confidence
But
thing.
yeah,
you
but
don't
that's the thing,
wanna,
you've got to
you're
be.
in such a high level, you don't want to let your mates so you
But then if you're playing
inhibited.
in a state of origin, which is one of the biggest rivalries, the biggest competitions, aside from the World Cup or whatever you can be in terms of, it's not domestic, but that level, that annual thing. 1, you've been picked. 2, you're training then alongside. Bear in mind, there's still some guys in there that you would have watched reviews and been like, and you might even play in the same team as them or stuff, but you never ever get rid of that. I'm in the same team as this person. There's a fine line between where you think, what am I doing here, versus I've been picked, I must be good, I'm playing alongside, I'm either starting or I'm coming off the bench or however it works, but you're in that match day squad, and you've got to sit back and go, obviously somebody thinks I can perform, so I've got to go and do it. I think that we don't have enough of that where we say to players, you earn the right to be there, and it's because you've been coached well, or it's because you've developed well or whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't think we give the players enough credit just for saying you are good in it. Like,
Well, that guy nearly got 50 caps.
that one? Him.
He was 18 when he made his Great Britain debut.
He's mentioned in the paper today.
Absolutely fearless. And I just love seeing kids who back themselves, or young talent that could easily be inhibited by the stage that they're on.
Yeah.
Saying, no, I'm going to justify why I've been selected.
I think that was like, for me, like Jack Walker, obviously, bless him with the injuries and stuff. But he rocks up, you know. He comes into a very strong squad. Yeah, he comes into a squad, he's getting tasters here, there and everywhere. Then all of a sudden, he's been handed the #1 shirt, and it's like everyone's going, oh, he's too young, is he good enough, is he this, that? And he steps out onto the pitch, and he's not an arrogant kid, he's still so young in his mentality and how he, you know, and everything that he does. And he's like, it's mine now, I've got to perform in it. And it's that kind of thing where we love to doubt. It's like, I think Barry McDermott said it, didn't he, when Jason scored the try? Doesn't know how good he's going to be. Then he stopped himself because we are so good at putting pressure on, or expectations, or just being negative about somebody, you know, they're too young, or they shouldn't have, you know, why they're playing yet. But I think that also there's a fine line where the players have got to go out and go, this is why, thank you very much, take a bow. I don't know, it's more difficult as a player, isn't it? Because
the best of anything make it look easy. As Carston will know, he's watching on Facebook, so I'll look at that camera. He knows how easy we make this look every Monday. I can't read your other question out.
Even
Carston.
more professional than GB News.
It's like I'm like Andrew Neil here.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No, just with look at the hair. Alan says, would you like to see a men versus women's game in the future? You'd beat them all, wouldn't you?
no, it wouldn't.
Billie Jean King.
Crap on it.
No, it wouldn't. It would be. Do you know what?
I stopped comparing. They're very different.
But this is the thing. So, first of all, as whether I want, we are just genetically different anyway, so it wouldn't work. Secondly, can you imagine the stick we would get if we won? We wouldn't be like, hey, the women are brilliant. We'd be like, they'd be like, oh, can you imagine the comments?
They didn't try.
They'll be like,
They'll let you win. It's like when you play a girl.
The men
at
didn't
pool.
want to tackle them,
It's
or
like when you play a girl at pool in the pub and you let them win, you know,
there are no pity points around here.
to let them win.
What I would like to see is not men's versus women's. Is a very similar thing to the All Stars type thing where we have an England. I've said this to you, haven't I? An England women's versus the rest of the leagues. I reckon that we'd give her a good run for the money. I'll tell you that for sure.
Probables and possibles.
Yeah.
Bring it
What
back.
I'd like, you know, like maybe training together, or because I think the men's game is better. We're still developing, and we bring a completely different thing. You might not get the big bopping bashes week in, week out. You might get in the odd games or the odd meetings, but we could learn a lot from training with, and I don't mean regularly, you know, whether it's the England girls training with the England men, or them running through the same sets, and you run through the same drills, but then you go off separately to do it. But having that, everyone's coming from the same idea, the umbrella thing, that this is how England want to play. Like at Leeds Rhinos, you know, we get at the start of the season, not COVID now, but definitely 2020 when we're going to start the season, everyone gets the same chat. Everyone gets the same, these are our goals, these are our morals, these are our unique points, whether it's the academy, whether it's under 16s, the women's, the men's, the wheelchair, the netball.
Well, that's Paul's mentioned the netball. Is there any synergy between the two of you? And I guess with COVID, that's not going to be the same as it might have been anyway.
No, we think there was a moment where we had similar S&C coaches, but the timing of it and how when they train and when we train, and they obviously use the sports hall and stuff up in Leeds Beckett. Yeah, that was it. I was going to go Leeds Met then, you know, old school.
Leeds Polly.
No, and I know that Leanne is about as close a link who's our media, but no, there isn't any link. But the only link is that we know that they sing off the same song sheet, in the sense that as much as it's a club, it's a brand. We are the Leeds Rhinos brand, so we all have the same chat and the same ethos.
There's an interesting thing that's going to happen, because the England squad's are announced in the next week or so, aren't they? Men's, women's, wheelchair, whatever. We've just seen the utter entire mess that the ECB have had to deal with. Someone at the RFL is going to have to go through the social media histories of the players who are going to be picked.
That's a really interesting question.
Because they need to do it before somebody else does. Because
well,
I know there are tweets out there.
Would you take responsibility for your social media feed, or would you expect the management of a club or international
My
team?
personal one would be me. Like,
and do you know that you have to? Because you have a certain status in the sport. Do you now look back over your history of social media?
For example, when Phil said John Wilkins joining the magazine, I thought, well, I better check back and see if I've tweeted anything bad about John Wilkins. I thought, I haven't, it's all right.
Well, I'm slightly different in the sense that I don't think I've ever tweeted anything bad.
Well,
I
that's
think
the
I'm
thing.
quite a nice person.
You sort of know, don't
I
you?
have
Yeah.
tweeted things
Am
where...
I tweeting anything racist? No, because I'm not a racist.
Well, no, but I have tweeted things where I've had Phil Daly ring me up and go, can you remove that? It's just because I think I'm funny. I am actually hilarious.
Either that or a bottle of wine too many.
No, I'm not that type of... You never... No. Don't be silly. I'm not them tweeters. You're not one of them tweets. It's like Sophie Robinson is probably...
Let's throw her under the bus, why don't you?
no,
Is it?
Sophie Robinson is the most active person on Twitter
Oh,
right
her
now.
Instagram's brilliant. All the food, I love it.
Yeah, well, that's Food with Sophie for on Instagram.
That's what I'm blown for putting on
If you want to know
all
what's
the weight
available in Leeds and Manchester area for good food, she'll give you an honest review. And it's brutally honest. But she's the most active person on Twitter that I know. And there are some where you think, oh, but it's not racist or it's not derogatory, it's just honest.
No, I think her tweets are what players should be like.
She's just active,
Because
isn't she? But yeah.
She doesn't say anything.
No, so you go back.
Some people would say they're controversial, but they're in line with the views that I would hold. So they're all right.
Controversial is not necessarily offensive.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had the chat about social media, be careful about it, you know, don't put anything too, not extreme, but just be wary that the fact that if you're going to put Leeds Rhinos or whatever in your bio, that you therefore are automatically, and I think I've never done it anyway, not that I would, but I'm also a teacher, so I've also got that other umbrella. But yeah, I mean, you are in control. If you tweet something out controversial, whether you're a player or whether you're an international player or whether you're just a person, if you think for a second it might be deemed inappropriate, you shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Well,
I don't care who you are.
Or you can go back and delete it because people do change over time.
Yes, and I appreciate that.
And they do have contrary opinions put to them that makes them change the way they look at life. But you need to be self-regulatory, or if you have an agent, we talked about this before, if you've got an agent and you sign a player on your books, as an agent, one of the first things you should do is go through your client's Twitter feed or Instagram feed or whatever and just say, we're deleting that because that is going to harm the chance of you getting another contract, or somebody's going to drag this up at a time when...
But it's not even you getting the contract, it's therefore who you play for and who you're representing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You are therefore, as soon as you sign for somebody, you are representing them. And whether you tweet something out 2 weeks ago or 10 years ago, it doesn't matter. It's still there. That's the danger about social media though, isn't it? It's in that plethora of the World Wide Web, whatever it is. Somebody just types your name and a certain word and anything that's related will come up.
And context isn't necessarily relevant.
Yeah, and what happened 10 years ago and how you tweeted versus how you tweet now, the way you speak, your grammatical errors or however it is, everything matters, isn't it? Like, I might have to go back actually and check my tweets just for grammatical errors. That will be the only problem.
You need an editor.
Yeah, I do. Do you know what
But I would, seriously, I mean, if we know people watch this programme, if you think you're going to be in the England squads announced next week, check your Twitter. Because someone will. There are people out there who will,
Absolutely.
because we've seen what's happened with cricketers I've never heard of. Even James Anderson sent a stupid banter tweet out.
It didn't happen with Ross Peltier.
Yeah.
And he...
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see the content of his tweets, but that's his political career over.
Well, that's it, yeah.
Done.
And also this thing where you now have to put an honest tweet, an apologetic tweet out that people don't know about, so therefore can only assume what it may have been. So...
It's...
Yes, it is now the part of a governing body and or management team to say we need to take charge of checking back over.
Or just remind your players, it shouldn't have to happen, but remind your players.
It's important.
Not that everybody put stuff on social media gets censored for what they put on social media. But Carsten says he's not going to be in the England squad. Well, you never know, Carsten. You might be in the cricket squad at this rate. You'll run out of players at some point.
You're playing Euro D for Germany.
It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's been pushed back a month. Freedom Day. Don't know. Apparently,
People marching outside, don't they? No.
the Challenge Cup might have more people. That might be one of the
exempt events. Yeah.
So,
well, again, going to have to be very careful about. There are 20,000 people in Wembley at the moment for the Euros, which was supposed to be going up. Be very hard to discriminate now against sports and say, well, they can have it in that venue, but you can't.
UEFA's got more money.
But also,
I was also Sadiq Khan prying around on the telly on Friday night. So,
do you not also want to see the backlash? Touch wood, there isn't any from it. But then you've got to use these events just to check if, I don't want there to be, because I'm quite like everybody else. It's
we're all in the same boat.
but
everybody's in the same boat.
You can imagine that 20,000 people are there now, and nobody checks anything, or it's not monitored or whatever. Typically, Rugby League will go down, and there'll be 1,000 cases or what. It's one of them things, isn't it, where that happens. So you've got some consistency.
That would get me head checked when I was going in to watch the Women's Super League games. It was alright.
Get your head checked.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
I
you
don't think it's that simple.
Yeah. Get the old temperature thing. Oh, you're alright.
Oh, I did a temperature one the other day, and it said I was 34.1, and I was like, you sure about that?
Because you've been out in the sun.
I know I'm cold-hearted, but it's taking it a bit too far, that, isn't it?
Not orange enough.
No.
But you've never been
Runs, no.
32 point something now, have you?
What about you?
A man barely alive.
Cold to the core.
Barrow. Can I say Barrow?
You can say, what do you want to say about Barrow?
Barrow got 1,700 people watching it at a League One game.
Is there?
Higher crowd than any championship game. And I know we're dealing
Does
with...
that mean you should kick everyone out of the
restrictions.
championship on Barrow?
No, I'm just saying what a great job they've done in promoting the sport, giving away tickets to school kids in South Cumbria.
Wow.
Very proactive with having a beer garden when they were shut down and couldn't play rugby, so everybody socially distanced. Made themselves a real community hub. Everything that is right about that sport Barrow are doing at the moment. So, just wanted to say, and they're unbeaten at the top of League One. Well done, Barrow.
I forgot social media one. I took a leaf out of your book and upset Castleford fans yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, by retweeting something from 3 years ago to make a point about something. But,
Oh.
got them all
I haven't
riled
lost
up.
anybody for a while.
I know, I got them all riled up,
Maybe tonight is the night.
which was good. But it was in regards to Bradford Bulls, who don't send out tweets during a game saying a pass was definitely backwards when the referee says it's forwards. Grow up. How do they know? How do they know from the stand? If a pass
At the
is
end of the
forward,
day,
that's when the
it's that
referee's there.
difficult thing is, you just don't tweet it, because whatever the ref said has happened, so there's no point dwelling.
The RFL should sanction them, bringing the game into disrepute. They won't, but they should. Carsten was on the German bench for the last international versus Netherlands. Not as a player, but it strengthened my opinion to never play full tackle again. If you got on Carsten, you could have won the Golden Boot last year. Is it still the Serbian fellow who's winning the Golden Boot? Brazil played the Philippines.
I'm not sure that was a fully sanctioned. Well, I think it is. It just wasn't a ranking event because it was only heritage
They
players.
don't get a cap. It was mentioned in, was it at half time? Oh, you were there, you wouldn't have watched it. Because I did actually watch the game and listened to the coverage. That you were trying to find some kind of international team to jimmy yourself into for the World Cup.
Well, Andy Dobson's the Scotland head coach.
Yeah,
But
isn't
still,
she?
you got women's team.
No.
Have you had Haggis before?
No.
No.
But I think she was more referring to my wonderfully golden glow that
Oh,
I
for
had
Brazil. Yeah.
for Brazil.
Yeah.
And, if I had any remote heritage for Brazil, I'd be going for that. I think...
Word
Yeah.
seems to be they're going to shock a few people.
I know, I really hope so.
That they've
The
got
Canadians
some
said the same as well, didn't
genuine athletes.
Do you know what? The Canadians are genuinely good squad, though.
But the Brazilians have got some rugby union sevens players. They've got a women's championship now at the moment.
I'd love that, you see. So, I think it's brilliant anyway, isn't it? We can say, the opening game is England versus Brazil. I think it just sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds like a World Cup.
England versus Brazil. It just it sounds lovely. But for then Brazil to come out and perform would be even better. And I'm not saying whether they win or lose, but a good competitive performance. You know, the unknown. I love it. I love it. You know, and then we can claim, well, we sent Lois for sellouts to do some coaching back in, you know.
Did she bring back staff?
Probably, but she keeps that low key, doesn't she? And I know she's tiny as well, so it's no use to me. But I think, you know, we can when Brazil are really good, we'll be like, oh yeah, Lois went out.
Well, they'll need a mentor, won't they? Because they're based in Leeds.
Yeah.
So all you need to do is arrange to be.
Find some steakhouses.
Oh, I
That's
tell you
what
something would be
Brazilians
great.
do.
Maybe Sophie would about that, but
What be her assistant?
listen,
No,
I
Cultural attaché.
yeah. I think when it was the 2012 Olympics, I was languages and what was the role? Language and something coordinator.
Culture.
Yeah, something like that.
Culture.
I was working between cultures and I was like, language? I was like, my languages are very limited. To like
Estonian.
2.5. And I didn't even put that in my application. But I can definitely do that for the World Cup.
I think you should be the cultural attaché for the Brazilian women's.
Fine. If somebody's got to do it, I'll do it.
Show them all the sights of Leeds.
Yeah, no, I'm taking over the team here. I'll get.
Yeah. And of course, you know, a couple of coaching sessions.
Yeah.
Bit of insight into the opposition that they're going to be playing.
Yeah, I wouldn't share that though. So if Brazil are watching this, if you want me to, I wouldn't share. Excuse
I
me.
thought you.
It's is it someone with an OBE?
Yes.
We haven't talked about that yet. All the games this week. Who cares about the games?
Okay, let me see.
I don't know. Well, if you're lost, so I'm not interested in
Is that
the
mine?
game.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's hot.
Yeah, but I'm cold, so I can handle it.
We're back to Chester out, by the way, on the way through Facebook.
Oh, one defeat.
Yeah, Chester out. Dave Fafita scored again. He must be after a contract. He must be up at the end of the season. Hope he's not watching.
Or his agent.
Yeah. No, he's agent won't be. What was I going to say? I was going to ask you something. I can't remember.
About me being Brazil's cultural
Brazil's
manager.
I think we've got you that gig now.
Yeah. I mean, wait.
I don't need. No, I'll do the Canadian. They were such a good crack in the 2017 World Cup. I wanted to be in their squad just because they looked like they were having fun.
They sounded like it when we had that Canadian special.
They're
During
confident as
whichever
well.
one
They've
that
got
was.
this.
They were good.
And it's not brash. They just go, no, we're not making up the numbers.
Yeah,
we're
but the
coming.
thing is, they went and they performed. They're in the semi-final, you know.
And they're going to have a Tim Hortons in Leeds by the time.
Yes.
I hope so, because that's all Sandy ever goes on about.
So I
Yeah,
know.
Tim Hortons is great.
In Leeds.
But they really performed, and they just had a good crack as well. You know, like when we did the opening kind of.
I'm only having this because you recommend
They
it.
are.
They are good. Have you seen the old advert to them? It's hilarious.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, but you know these are orange.
Chocolate orange flavour.
Oh, are they?
I don't know if they're on Rugby League player diet.
Nope, but I'll have one anyway.
Well, just,
I'm a rebel
just
without
hide,
cause.
just hide it.
No, if I'm gonna have one, I'm gonna do it proud.
Do it properly, yeah. You mentioned England's Rugby Union Sevens people signed for York. Is that going to be the new thing? We're going to sign loads of England's Rugby Union people as a sport?
Well, do you know what? I don't know whether there's not a big
Because obviously,
crossover.
the men can't sign Rugby Union players anymore because they have too much money in men's Rugby Union. But
Yeah, and there's.
I don't know how much money's in women's Rugby Union or not. I don't know.
Nothing in sevens because they cut all the budget.
Oh,
Yeah,
do?
they cut- yeah.
And obviously, there's no money in women's Rugby League. We know that. So.
Yet.
Yeah, but you're paving the way for the people of the future. Don't forget, they'll be standing on your shoulders or something.
I pay my own fuel to get to my games.
Yeah, but just think about how in the future you'll be able to think these girls getting paid, and that's because of my hard work in the past.
I'm not sure I'm that much of a pioneer in the game.
I think you are.
No, but, all the other people.
You know what I am setting up is that people are going to go, at least she's not as outspoken as that Danika Priim. You know, I've got somebody's back.
Well, it's only taken about 2 years for me to learn how to pronounce your name, so that's a positive. 3 years. How do we get? We need to work out how to fill in one of these forms, right? To get some of these women pioneers who are not Danica to get an award from the Queen. Because
You
obviously,
or not me?
Well, you just said you're not as important as all these other people.
I know, but I quite like a.
Quite like
I quite like some letters after my name. It's just a. It's like when you can pay, can't you, to be a doctor rather than a Mrs. or a Miss.
Like those people, you can be like you can pay online to be like a vicar with some made up American.
Yeah, get ordained for somebody's wedding online.
So like, you know, if we were going to do, because obviously it's the hot button topic now, because obviously everyone in Rugby League's got an award. It's like Mutley, from Wacky Races. Danika's too young to remember.
I know Wacky Races.
But you always got
Dick Dastardly.
Penelope Pitstop.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dick Dastardly, obviously the greatest,
Peter Perfect.
yeah, greatest motor racer of all time, Dick Dastardly. Very much inspiration from Michael
37 this
Schumacher
year.
in the 90s. Mutley used to always get a medal for being good. Like some people in the Rugby League have obviously got this weekend. Who should we be writing the forms for in the women's game to get nominated for their work? Obviously, because they're not going to get paid, so they might as well get a medal to get some letters after their name.
Andrea Dobson would be my top
She
number
was
one.
really good on the telly, I thought.
She's ace. She's just brilliant. She's honest. She's so knowledgeable at the game. She's a bit like the John Wilkin in the nicest, better way, in the sense that
She's got a coffee shop.
no, but I mean, like she can play multiple roles. She knows the game so well. She can see her vision for the game. Her analysis is great. She was the best captain I've ever had in my whole career. She has grafted from, being 16. She is currently the most capped player. She played 2 games for Great Britain, and then moved to England. So I don't even think her caps from Great Britain count. So she has more. She's still in the game. She's been working in the game. She is, Andy Dobson's up there.
Because obviously there isn't a women's Hall of Fame. I don't know if they separate it.
Isn't there going to be something for the World Cup? Like,
I don't know these things. So
I don't know if it's women. I don't know if it's. I know there's a Hall of Fame. Because I remember when we were at Bradford and we went to the Lord Mayor's tea party when we won the treble. Yeah. And there was a woman. Oh, it's going to be really bad that I can't remember her name. There was a woman who said, "You will be in the World Cup Hall of Fame when it comes round in 2021." But I don't know if there's yeah, but I don't know if. But it's
I think there's going to be heritage numbers if there aren't already.
We've all got heritage numbers. I've had mine recently tattooed on my ankle. Number 56. There's a lot of other things going on there. It's not a very big tattoo, but yeah, we've got.
I'm only slightly traumatised because of that.
They didn't see it, so it's all right.
Oh, I'm not that flexible, so I'll take a picture and put it out later. No, but we've all got. So the girls.
Does that get cancelled? I don't know.
The girls play with their heritage numbers on their shirts now.
Brilliant. So
whereas we didn't. That came in after the World Cup. I think Andy, Beth Sutcliffe, Emma Slow, Jodie, Emily, Lois, and people like that got the bronze or silver.
Because they've got
the amount of caps you got, and they now get that. So there were things that they came into play. And then after the World Cup, there's been heritage numbers. There's obviously been the caps. Everyone gets a cap now. We got our caps given to us after at Lee when it was the New Zealand Test series. So yeah, we are catching up. But yeah, Hall of Fame. Would you have current players in the Hall of Fame, or do you just have retired players?
Normally, you've got to have retired for a certain
So
amount of
Kirsty
time.
Maroney, Beth Sutcliffe, Andy Dobson.
It's a tricky one because
Gemma
obviously,
Walsh.
and Phil will know more about this than I do, but the Men's Hall of Fame came along in 1988, so like long after the sport had been.
Yeah, exactly. So if you think
so
you got a fair few to go at.
Yeah, and Neil Fox wasn't allowed into the year after because he didn't retire until 1979, despite holding the world record and not coming back.
But then you have people like Nat Harrowell, who we lost obviously at Christmas because Featherstone have retired her shirt, which I just think is brilliant, and they have her number on all of their playing shirts. She would have been in the World Cup. She would have been in the World Cup, and so would you have people like that in it as well? There's plenty of names I could give to you.
As an awkward segue from that, because it's
never stopped us before.
No. because I pointed out this yesterday because they showed Warrington and Huddersfield. Huddersfield should either wear squad numbers with names on, or no team should wear them because it just looked untidy. They've got numbers on the back but no names. I need to know who they are
Well, again,
because Warrington have names on the back.
standards.
I did watch the game thinking,
If it's Super League, it should have Super League standards.
But then, that is a finance thing, isn't it, for clubs?
but I do think that's the same for the Championship where you get players on loan who just wear 32 and no name and they should have the name on the back as well.
Not sure
But
that's
then-
a cost. Put the name on
Well,
the
so
back
we
of
all
the
have a shirt now. We have our
because
specific
you get a
shirts.
squad number, so it's not like you've got to change the shirt every week. It's
But then, when you've got a team that are not consistent in the sense that we've got it's hard to get into leads, to say,
Obviously, yeah.
you know, and therefore you earn that shirt so much that you don't want to leave, like you don't want to leave. Whereas Huddersfield, who are relatively new, you've got, there's a girl, Oyen, who played her first Super League game for Huddersfield, who I begged to be in my Year 7 squad at school, and that's the reason she's into rugby. If I was her, and it's not because I think I'm so good, but she said her biggest fear is playing against me. What happens if that fear's so
I
great
think
that
that'll
she
be
just...
mine as well.
I mean, I'm not even that good, you know what I mean? I'm too nice. But they don't have a consistent rotation of players at the minute, and I don't know. I understand.
but if
I'm
we're
speaking,
gonna
I'm speaking from aesthetics
If
rather
we're,
than
but also, if we're going to
practicalities.
sell them as potential stars,
Mhm.
we need to know who they are because
But it's Saints' first year having them on the back of their shirts.
Mark Wilson of this parish,
Currently in St Petersburg.
Who has been, can I just say, I think he's been phenomenal. And
He's
I
the
know
best
he's
in the
great.
business.
No, but I know he's great at his job. But he's we've had Sharon Chortle as well, who's been brilliant. But genuinely, one person who, whether he does his research, whether he's genuinely interested or not, you listen to him, and I love listening to him commentate the women's game, especially if there's not necessarily like women. There's not been a woman alongside him yet. Just a little bit annoying. Leon was good. Leon Price was good, and he's had a few nice people. But somebody in the women's game who genuinely makes the game sound great. So I want to thank him. I think he's great.
well, that's because
He's great at his job anyway, isn't he? But,
Yeah.
He's the best.
But
player.
there is a shared passion for promoting the women's game.
Yeah. But
He-
it makes it difficult for him if you've got a team sheet, you know bits and pieces about people, and you haven't got anybody in the back of the names. But like I say, Huddersfield, I'm new to this, but Saints have only just had their spot on the back of their shirts.
Getting a team sheet sometimes.
Well, Mark,
Yeah.
Mark, who writes a column in a certain magazine, Town on Friday, sponsored by TalkSport, was at TalkSport Towers when the women's final was on, and he says in his column he went and had his lunch at a sports bar just at the bottom of where they broadcast from, and the women's game was on,
Mm.
and he said there were loads of people who wouldn't otherwise in any way whatsoever have ever come
Yeah.
in contact with rugby league or women's rugby league, who were sitting there watching it, and he just sat there listening to their comments
Yeah.
that were solely complimentary about what they were watching.
I'd love to do
Now
that stuff.
that's
Yeah.
why you need names on the back, because if you're appealing to an unfamiliar audience,
Mhm.
and they were, who's that just did that phenomenal piece of skill? Oh, it says
Yeah.
Priim on the back of the
She was
shirt.
like that, just got bashed. Like Rotherham.
Because I just got sent
But
off again.
if there is no name, it's harder to identify and
Yeah.
build up the personalities. I just think it's a
It's
minimum
difficult because I
requirement.
think, so for Bradford Bulls having played there, the support from the club isn't that great, and therefore access to printing. So their shirts are made up of leftovers from the men.
But it should. What I'm saying is, the minimum standards should say you go out with
But
a
if-
squad name and a squad number.
But if we had minimum standards, we wouldn't have half the teams in the league.
It was.
So there's a fine line, real fine line.
Well.
Aesthetically, I'm all for
You
it.
might have answered. You might have said something there which needed to be said, but it was at the start of the season when we did our preview shows. It was interesting which clubs take this seriously and which ones don't, or which clubs bothered to reply to.
Yeah, we can go back and look at the politics of the whole Castleford and York with all the girls. York have offered some monetary, incentives. They've offered X, Y, and Z, and Cass can't physically offer that. Cass cannot compete, and since then, Castleford have stepped up and their training grounds improved. So it has put pressure on Castleford, but they don't physically have the money for the women's game at the minute, and it's much like Leeds, who you would say is probably one of the most, the richest clubs in the Super League in general anyway. We have been very, very lucky, and I will never, ever be able to thank Leeds for what they did for the women's game, whether they should have or not. At the time, there was no precedent set, but they did. They set the platform for the Women's Super League by kit, training ground, physios, nutritionists, psychology, just the club in general in terms of having buses to matches and not having to drive, or the team managers, the coaches, you know, and Adam helped a lot with that because he was still playing for the men's time. But they set a platform, and in the first year we didn't have names on the back of our shirts. But the end of that season we got our heritage numbers, which then meant the season after we got squad numbers, which then meant as that's gone through, Cass then got squad numbers, and then this year, you know, it's taken a couple of years later for Saints to even get them. So, you've got to set a level, and you can't. The RFL can't go in and say you have to have this, and this, and this, because we just wouldn't have it. They just don't have it.
And I know this sounds daft, and I'm sure it was an oversight, but it took the Saints club Twitter 21 hours to reply to Faye Gaskin's tweet about her injury, and I thought they should have done that a lot.
Saints generally, they've tweeted out the odd bits and pieces, but it took Saints until the Challenge Cup final to tweet out that they were on their Twitter page. They have done the tidbits, but
you know,
yeah, but they have.
as
Again, that's what I say. It's very difficult for me because we have been so well supported by Leeds, and we have match days, or they retweet us, or they, you know, and whatever.
Well, they've got a dedicated team for.
Yeah, and it's just different, isn't it? So, but I thought Saints, the most active I've seen Saints about the women's game was because of the Challenge Cup. And yeah, Faye then also got loads of support from Saints players.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the players who have commented on it, or have retweeted her, or messaged her, or...
I think it's difficult because I'm acutely aware that in terms of attendance figures and whatever, we probably over-promote the women's game more in terms of talking about it on this programme than where the interest level is. So I know we are doing whatever we do. And some people have criticised us at times, not for that, but for not always being overly positive, which I don't think is fair, because I think one of the criticisms you can level at the coverage of women's football, certainly on TV, is there is no negativity allowed. There is never any criticism of players or coaches.
It's never anything negative about the actual game or the players or the teams, is it? It's just the...
And I think you have to have that, otherwise...
administration of it all.
Otherwise, you are presenting a false image.
But then
players
I understand...
players aren't perfect.
So I understand that the women's game is not for everybody. Absolutely not. And some people are like, you're not here to listen about the women's game and that, but if you support a team, so if you support St Helens, or if you support Wigan, or Huddersfield, or blah, 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 what you're supporting is that team. And whether they have a men's, a women's, or an academy, or a wheelchair, surely, this is going to make me a very popular person, you support a team and not a men's team. Because I know there's a Leeds Rhinos fan, and he has been very active in Twitter saying he does not support, and he's changed his Twitter bio to Leeds Rhinos men and academies. And I don't know if it says only, but it's very...
# Leeds men in crisis.
Yeah. So, but my view is, as a rugby league supporter for many, many years, not a women's rugby league supporter, just a rugby league supporter, I've supported Leeds Rhinos, and if I didn't play for them, I'd still want the women's team to do well, because that's my team. The badge is the badge, and who you play for, you know.
So tell us about Faye, because I have never ever seen... I mean, we were talking about Josh Griffin last week. I've never seen a player have to go through what he went through. I've seen people do injuries, but never to the point where the excruciating pain is such that nothing else matters. But Faye's was just like the most unfortunate injury ever, because she was literally jumping for joy.
Yeah. And that picture will not get out of my mind. I can't get it out of my mind.
Because you know her as well as anybody.
Yeah, really well.
Roomed with her and...
I
tour with her.
I first played rugby league when I was at university as England students, and I refer to Faye as Forrest Gump and Jenny. We were Forrest and Jenny, and that's back in 2011, 12, maybe. Yeah, significantly long enough ago to. We were Forrest and Jenny. She was leader of the patch. She was the captain. She's been the half. She's the greatest half in the women's game. She's the greatest kicker in the women's game in England at the minute. I wasn't in the England squad far enough, but we won't mention that. But she's hardworking. She is great at her job. She's so hard on herself, and she obviously Saints didn't start particularly well in the final. She recognised, put on her face pass, and celebrated her try assist. Jumped, landed, and the picture is of her leg, and it just looks like a bow. It just why that was even allowed to be tweeted out. I've got PTSD.
Don't talk about people that have focused on.
I've got PTSD from the injuries. And obviously she went down, and within half an hour she's back out with a full leg brace on, and the outcome is not fantastic, and there's lots of complications in it, and it's just bloody awful because she's out for the season.
And the World Cup hopes have gone.
She wasn't in the England squad. She hadn't even been selected for that.
She would have been.
She told us that last year on the show, remember?
I can't just keep talking about fame, not that. But
It's not an age discrimination.
No, it's not. It's not. Politics. But
In Rugby League.
it's madness, isn't it? It's not all rainbows and unicorns. No, but a really nasty injury in a really unfortunate time for her in the game, and a really unfortunate for Saints to lose such a pivotal. You know, it's good for Beth Stott because Beth Stott is always in face shadow. So Beth is a very, very good half, and now is going to have to step up with Jodie. But yeah, she's got a long road to recovery. The thing that I want to, I have to question myself sometimes. So Josh Griffin.
Just questioning you.
So Josh Griffin, you might all
You can
disagree
do a
with me.
podcast of yourself, can you?
No, so Josh Griffin has a really nasty injury. Everybody sees it. Everyone hears about it. There's lots of varied opinions about it. He goes back to his club. He gets scanned. He gets operated on. Saturday morning, Faye does, a mere few hours earlier, if not even a few hours, was it? Faye does a similarly nasty injury in the fact that she's snapped and fractured and blah, 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 blah. She has paid for her own MRI scan. She will now await the outcome and what the actual thing is. She will either then go back through NHS and wait for the thing, or she will have to fork out however many thousands of pounds it is to pay for her own operation. Now these are, isn't it contradictory of me to say, St Helens and Hull FC, it's a team. It doesn't matter whether it's men's or women's. But where's that fine line? In the women's game, so Danny Anderson, greatest prop in the game, your favourite player.
Second.
She was really lucky in the sense she wasn't at all. Her operation is by one of our other girls, Addie. She's having her ACL done today. Bless her. Danny snapped her ACL in England training. So it wasn't even club, it was England international training. She snapped her ACL. She waited 5 weeks for her MRI scan, and the only reason she got it sooner was because she kept on ringing Pinderfield asking for a last minute. And she rang one day and they was like, yeah, we've got one this afternoon. She then pestered, and if you knew Danny Anderson, she doesn't pester anybody. She's quiet, she's meek and mild, and she just does what she needs to do.
The assassin.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's only through word. I don't know the exact ins and outs of it, but then she rings up about the MRI scan and keeps pecking about because I'm like, oh, it'll be 2 to 3 weeks for your results, which is NHS protocol. She then. Somebody at England gets hold of this, some doctor speaks to some doctor, and then the next thing you know, they're speaking to the doctor from Hull for her, who's then managed to get her in sooner. And she's had her operation, is it 8 to 9 weeks after snapping her ACL? Which by 8 to 9 weeks post ACL, you're looking at, you're 2 weeks off back running, 3 weeks off back running. But she's not even had her op yet. So, again, it's a focus on the women's game, but where's the fine line between the medical attention then from the men's and the women's game? We have insurance if you decide to take it out yourself. So I pay however many pounds a month for a couple of insurance policies that cover different things. But Paul, like Faye and Danny both essentially funding / waiting for their own operations. I know that's really long-winded and boring for some of you.
No, and I think it again highlights the fact that if we're going to take it seriously and call it elite,
But Danny did hers at an England international
then
session.
there needs to be the backup of
Yeah.
the kind of support a male player would have if they'd been injured playing for their country or training for their country, and clearly clubs would not release players if they didn't have those insurances in place.
Yeah, it's just a fine line between, if you can get a scan for Josh Griffin, can you get a scan for Faye Gaskin?
Well, here's another question: why haven't all Super League players, male and female, been vaccinated?
Do they all want to be?
Well, those who don't
I know I shouldn't ask that question.
perhaps shouldn't be selected.
I know I shouldn't ask that.
But what you can't have.
I'm
sport,
not opening that up as a
No,
discussion.
You can't have sport held up as a paradigm of we need sport because it's good for the nation's morale, and then not vaccinate, which would have taken what 400, 500, 600 vaccinations out of a system that could clearly cope with that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that would have prevented some of these shutdowns and people still coming into contact, but you would have thought that they would have qualified to be pushed up the priority list to take some of the risks that we've seen now come to fruition out.
So we've had obviously Saints and Wigan women cancelled this weekend because of COVID. 2 weeks ago we had an isolation of our own because we had some cases, but we didn't have a game for a couple of weeks, so we were very lucky in the sense that it didn't affect our. But one of our players who had COVID had both of her vaccinations. So she has got immune deficiencies, etc. So the the vaccination probably hasn't stopped from getting it. It's probably stopped a lot of the symptoms being a lot worse than they would have been. But that's the same thing, isn't it? You know, you can.
But again,
vaccine...
the thing about that is clubs could pay for their players to be vaccinated. You don't have to wait until it's your turn. And it's again going back to the whole debate we had about academies. What does it mean to be elite?
Mm-hmm.
What resource do you need? But what sort of things do you need to put in place?
Yeah.
To protect the competition. And I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
We've got all our priorities right.
But there's so many priorities that we have to be realistic as well. Particularly for the women's game, there needs to be, you know, a list of.
Yeah, but you say 300,000 people watched that final.
Apparently, yeah.
Which wasn't on at the most convenient time.
I wasn't massively promoting outside of.
That's a phenomenon. And when you think, if that 300,000 is bigger than any men's game on Sky apart from Grand Final.
I tell you what, Phil. Andy says, "Are you over, Phil? Are you over 50 for your vaccination?"
Me?
Yeah.
This guy at the big one.
Very,
isn't he?
very kind of you. Yeah, approaching 50. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had both mine now. For the AstraZeneca, trying to put a magnet on me because I saw if you have the thing, you're magnetic. Didn't work. But as I tweeted a year ago, right, Rugby League came back, got some money from the government, and Rugby League is dependent on people coming through the turnstiles, and Rugby League clubs employ people who went out on social media and said don't wear masks. So can't have it all ways, can you? And I'm not saying wear a mask or don't wear a mask. That's up to you. But don't if your job depends on it. I've been told in the past, go back to social media, things I can and can't say in my job, because it'd be foolish, and it'd be foolish for me then to ignore what I've been told I can't say, and then do it, and then I've suddenly not got a job anymore. How'd that work? So I don't do that anymore. I've got a job, which is good. By the way, talking about those Super League games being all at the same time as the internationals, Greyhound Derby last week, they put the heats on. At the same time, I've got like some nonsense, other races. It's not a complete mess. It's not just Rugby League.
No, it's just what we want the internet. I mean, I just feel desperately. You can't feel sorry
what
for
are you
Sean
really watching?
Wayne because Sean Wayne wouldn't want you to feel sorry for him. But I just feel that it's almost like he's trying to do the England job with one hand tied behind his back. And if we want to promote this sport for the World Cup, and the World Cup's going to be a potential saviour for the sport, which let's be honest, it needs at the moment, then you need to do everything you can to put that England brand front and centre, men's and women's, in the build-up to what it's going to be later. You don't put it on and go, well, by the way, we'll just dilute it ourselves by some of the players that we might have wanted to pick are going to have to choose between club and country, and some of the fans are going to have to choose between. Like, either do it, and do it properly, and make a big deal out of it. And I mean, in what other sport would England be? Can you imagine England football playing and 3 Premier League games going on at the same time? It just would not happen.
Yeah, it's just, to me...
England, well, no, rugby union does, doesn't it?
It doesn't. To me, it doesn't really matter about, well, they've got bigger squads, haven't they?
But that's the thing in cricket as well. But they are very much the feeders into their thing, aren't
but
they?
the thing that it's just the depletion for the teams, isn't it? Surely nobody wants to play. So if you, again, women's side, blah 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 blah. St Helens have got an international this weekend. England have got an international for the women. St Helens are fielding 7 to 10 players for that international. They don't want to play 2 days later. I mean, to be fair, in the women's game, half and would, because with that diet, I wouldn't anymore.
But the other thing is who they're playing, because they're playing a team that's also being taken out of those clubs. So the clubs should not be playing.
It's Dal Powell's press conference tomorrow, if you're watching this on Monday. And I'm not working tomorrow afternoon, so I might pop along to it, because it's on Zoom. So I don't have to go far, just a bedroom, plug my microphone in. And I might go along and ask him if I'm allowed, because Cass might not like it. Your squads raise a thing, whatever it is. You weren't happy last week. You got your subs taken off you. You might have players in both squads, the England squad and the combined Nations All-Star Superstar. What are you going to do? What are you going to do, Darryl? How are you going to cope? But ask it in a more professional way than that, because I don't really know that one.
So talking of the men's game,
which we haven't done for an hour now, so we'll talk about the results.
Sorry.
who's going to get relegated, Lee or Salford? Just
so he's
toss it in that grenade
Derek
there.
Lee.
Derek Bowman's on his programme notes. What does that Danika Priim know about Rugby League? She is a girl.
What you'd
So
say
the thing is, I don't know much about it. I catch and run and I watch a little bit, that's all.
What you'd
I'm not
say
she's got a twin yet either.
about the
In the NRL?
No, in the Leeds team.
Amy.
Oh, Zoe.
Oh, Zoe.
Yeah.
Does she look up to you?
She's a bit shorter than me, so yeah.
Generally, even though you weren't playing against Wakefield, I looked up and I thought,
Oh, I'm not sure I'll take that as a very good compliment.
I'm not even getting
that's my eyes though.
The results from this week, which again we don't need to go through it. The performances. Lee looked like a team that are spirited, and that although they haven't yet won a game, are competitive for parts of games, and even came back against Catalan. And some good reviews coming out of Ben Kavanagh and the impact that he's made. Salford looked like a team that were on a downward slope, got a lot of injuries, accept that, but seemed to fade out of games too easily. If they were to play each other this week and it was £1 million game, because we're boiling up to the 2 games between them perhaps being £500,000 games, who would you want to be on? Because I think it's switched this week, maybe from Lee being the most vulnerable to perhaps it being
Okay, so if you
Salford.
say it like that, my view may change. But then, if we're going on percentage wins and things being potentially cancelled, as a maths teacher, I would look at results and scores, and then would just do it specifically on a statistical thing. But if you're going to do it on the teams actually physically playing each other next week, this Friday, whenever you want to be, my view would be slightly skewed. So I would then say it would be Salford to go.
Where's it being played?
Well, they've got to play each other, haven't they? Home and away. I think the thing is, you looked at how well Hull KR played, but Salford's resistance was worrying. You looked at Salford the week before against Warrington, and after the period at the beginning where it looked like they were competitive, once they'd gone, they'd really got. It's like you're looking at a boxer that is being absolutely pummeled on the ropes. Lee, we knew were competitive for 40 minutes, but I just listening to the Catalan game on Saturday, they were blitzed at the start of the second half, and it would have been easy to be another, we were competitive for 40 minutes and we ended up losing by 38 points to 18. But they were the ones with the wet sail at the end, which is actually, if you're a Lee fan, quite encouraging.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It seems to be developing into a 2-horse race. Might be too early to say that because I know that we're only a third of the way through the season. But as you say, we're probably going to lose some more games. And
yeah, but Wakefield are going to beat Cass on Wednesday. We're going to go above them in the table. So
I just think looking at Wakefield have clearly got something. I would worry at the moment if I was Salford. That's all.
See, that's a big game on Friday, isn't it? Huddersfield Salford, because again Huddersfield can pull themselves away. It's the Ian Watson derby thing.
But again, I think you look at Huddersfield,
If
and
it goes ahead,
you could see progression to the point where they then believed a little bit too much in their own publicity and lost a game. But Ian Watson's the kind of guy that goes,
Huddersfield going to be out of isolation by then?
we know it's working.
but that's what I just said.
Well, we don't know how many cases they have.
I know, let me see if I've had any emails from the RFL. You are not allowed to comment on this.
This is embargoed, so I'm just going to tell Forty20.
I've never read I've never broken any embargoes. I'm not the Times.
Oh, boring.
There's one for the who remembers that Man of Steel debacle. What else happened at the weekend? There wasn't that much, was there? Because there were only 4 games in Super League. I think we mentioned them all now. Yeah, because I said earlier, it's Chester out now.
Well, what about Warrington? I mean, Gareth Widdop called into the England squad. His coach says playing best rugby of his career, rumoured to be on the radar of Canberra to replace George Williams, who's rumoured to be replacing him at Warrington.
And Blake Austin's off to Leeds.
Well, only if he's free. Apparently, if Warrington pay for everything for the remainder of this year,
Oh, excellent.
because he's already in their salary cap, then he becomes effectively a free player, and I'm
A bit of a Chris Radlinski.
reliably informed that a club in West Yorkshire might be interested on that basis.
Oh, Wakefield, brilliant. How's he going to get past Mason Leno? Can't get into it.
But yeah, Joe Westerman. It's 7 years since his last England call-up, back in the squad. 32 years of age, the opposite to the Jason Gary.
And he's got a very. Does this count as an international? Does this count as a test?
So are they bringing
Well,
over?
I don't think there'll be caps.
Well, this is it. And
Because they're not all coming over, are they?
that's what I'm saying. If you're not coming over, and this is a World Cup warm-up, you'd want to. I don't know if it's because of the good old COVID. I've not mentioned it a couple of times tonight.
The
COVID, the Rona. You want to put a squad out that's going to compete.
But,
so you'd want Elliot Whitehead, and you'd want, but obviously they're not. So
What about
Sean Wayne?
But
Sean Wayne's going to also have the pressure of Darryl Powell's on the phone, Christian Wood's on the phone. I haven't got your number, Chris Chester. We'll put Joe Weston in because Wakefield, no one gives a toss about Wakefield.
I do.
So Joe Weston, I do, but as well.
All right, so the
Joe
biggest
Weston, he
question.
can have a game because Wakefield.
The only player we know who is playing for
he deserves a cap.
the All Stars is the man they've named as captain.
England's Jackson Hastings.
England's own.
England's, yeah.
So we're already
From
talking about England versus England.
Yeah.
Does that work? Is that a saleable concept? Or what happens if Jackson Hastings has a man of the match performance, outplays?
He could be the new Raggy Chase.
Does Sean Wayne then have to pick him?
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? Because Sean he came, into position and made it very clear that he wanted born and bred and everything else. He said that himself, which meant you knew straight away that Jackson was out on his butt, as with Blake was. But has he been made captain as a bit of a? Does it make it more interesting?
Kind of sell the game?
Is it a media ploy? Is it? But then if he's eligible to play for England in a World Cup,
and he's playing quite well at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. But then he goes out a week on Friday and absolutely nails it. I think, regardless of what your thoughts and opinions are, if he's eligible to play for your squad and he is playing out of his skin, you'd be stupid not to take him on board, wouldn't you? But that is that an ego thing? Does that boil down to because he's made this big statement as he's come into position that he wants X, Y, and Z, he's not picked him, he's got his halves.
I'm going to clickbait this, so we'll title this video former England international says Sean Wayne is stupid.
Oh, I didn't quite say that, did I?
Don't matter. Clickbait. Don't matter.
I wouldn't say stupid. I'd say
is in denial.
Unwise.
I'd say he is very patriotic.
No, overly patriotic.
Overly patriotic. And He's going to have some tough decisions to
He's gonna
make.
have some tough decisions to make.
Oh, to be a coach with options.
Which he's got, which is good.
Yeah, which is what you want, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, there won't be any caps or for this because
No.
it's an England
I don't
World Cup trial. But you see, that's another reason why you're Darryl Powell and you get a phone call saying we need Jesse Senilafeo to play in a game that has no benefit for Jesse Senilafeo.
His leg's fallen off. Bye.
Yeah.
You're not going to be, you know.
That's what I said to Francis Cummins last week, wasn't it? If you've got Wembley coming up, you're a player. I know he said he wants to play all the time, but if you're the coach of Francis Cummins and you're saying we've got Wembley coming up, I know England want you to play in this game against the famous people, but you know Wembley's coming up.
Yeah, but
We're
that's
going
it. So
straight.
Jesse Senilafeo gets a call up. He plays, snaps his ankle. Touch wood, that doesn't happen. You never want it to happen. That's a significant person out of the squad. So, and in rugby league, you never play to think about injury. You never play with the what if because you have to.
Oh, of course.
If you did, we'd all be out. But then that is a serious consideration when you have in the what you ever said third way through the season, and there's I don't want to say unnecessary. It's not unnecessary.
But there's an even more serious consideration because of the schedule you've got.
Yeah.
You're looking at a Castleford team that've got a huge amount of games to play and a Wembley final to concentrate on, and a huge amount of games to play after that
Where
Wembley
is your focus?
final.
Yeah, where's your focus?
Why would you really? Even if that player can't play in one league game, because if he can't play for the All Stars, he can't play that weekend. You would say I'd rather have him under my control than let him play in what you would hope would be a very high intensity game and possibly get injured for absolutely no good reason for us or him.
But that's the thing, it's a high intensity game, which is what you want to play, and you don't get to see the mix of players, so for Sean, he needs to see how his players are going to play together, and it's going to be a high intensity game. Like, I can't say the same necessarily for England women. I'd like to think that Wales will come out, but I don't know how beneficial it will be for England women apart from having a team run with opposition. Yeah. But for the England men, there will be some genuine competition there. So it's seeing that squad in the best possible position before a World Cup without being able to fly and do anything. So you want to have anybody that's available to play it just so you can see how...
If we'd have been sensible, it's easy to say, sat here in number 1 Ivory Tower, Fantasy Island. We would have cleared this weekend of all of the fixtures. So the Super League would have gone down by 1 round and we would have taken this England team to play away in France. So the French Elite 1 final would have been, say, on Saturday, and England would have played a test match in France with the Arthur Morgs and the Toulouse players all available, flown in on the day of the game like teams are doing. Sean Wayne would have not only got an opposition that is improving, and it would have helped. And I know they're playing them in the World Cup, so yeah, all right, it's not ideal, but it's far enough away to say.
Wait for play Huddersfield every pre-season.
Yeah, you get the camp mentality because he has them for a few days before. They get on a plane together, they land together.
Do you know 2016 we flew out in the morning and played that day and then flew back as an England
But
double
playing away in France is a test. It always has been. Even when they've been pants coming over here and getting beaten by 80 at home, and they would have got a really good crowd if they'd have played that with 5,000 people allowed in at the Gilbert Brutus. Would have been slightly an intimidating atmosphere. What a great weekend for Rugby League that would have been. And now we've got the worst diluted option of both.
The ridiculous thing with the women's international is there will be the criticism afterwards, because we all know what's going to happen. We
anticipate, assume.
Yeah.
But it's good for Wales because they're getting their
international.
The Welsh girls are made up of some extra union players.
It's only going to be their second game, so I'm not saying they're no good or anything, but everyone expects England, who've been training through lockdown, who have the best players in the competition, should win very comfortably. And I'll put it that way. But, let's hope they don't. Let's hope it's a real good game. But what gets me is, and I read this on social media during the Cup final, we should not bother because the Australians and the New Zealanders are so much better than us. Which is a ridiculous thing to say because the men are anyway, so we may as well just give up. England women probably won't win the World Cup.
Well, it depends. I mean, COVID is not going to go away. It depends
Australia
who.
and New Zealand signed to say they're coming.
I think they have, but what they may have is some of their players. I think all of the players will be given the option, because each individual. So in the New Zealand Rugby League has said they are going to go to all of their players and say, we know it's a World Cup, we'd love you to play, but the option is entirely yours, with quarantine, with family commitments, with the fact that you go into a country that clearly has probably a rate of infection that is higher than you've got. If you didn't want to go, that would not be held against you. So I think they'll come, but they may not come with all of the players that they would like to come with.
Yeah. But for the women's team, it's slightly different, because I know that the Australian women's team are the ones under contract. But if it was the other way around and we were flying to Australia, I don't have the financial capabilities to isolate for 10 days, then fly out, do my 3-4 weeks, come back and then isolate for 10 days. I pushed it enough when I went out to the World Cup in 17, and that was without isolation, and that was with landing on the Sunday and playing on the Thursday. So for the women's side, and the same for the men, is it end of season, therefore, I mean, Australia, New Zealand, you're looking at win bonuses or whatever, so potentially they're going to get the money anyway. But it's a lot to ask, isn't it? Either side of your... Because if you have to isolate for 10 days, does that mean that Australia, can they isolate together and therefore carry on training? How does the isolation work?
But it also means when you get back, you don't see your family for an extra 10 days. So you've got 3 weeks where you're away, which becomes a month. So, you're sacrificing the hell out of it.
Can teams isolate together for 10 days prior to flying? So they could train? Or does it have to be...
Again, I don't think anybody knows at the moment.
Yeah.
That's
so there's lots of like grey areas, isn't there, about whether the men's and the women's could...
And the women needed an opponent because, as you've said right at the beginning, you can't just train.
Yeah.
You need to play. Well, which other opponents are there in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment?
France.
But at what level?
But can we travel in and out of France anyway?
Yeah, but it's the same as the men, isn't it? It's a competitive...
You may as well play Wales and give them the leg up, because they do. I mean, I think there were...
I'm all for Wales playing anyway, so it doesn't matter to me.
I think there were a couple of matches played in Wales this weekend.
Yeah.
It's the first time Welsh women's teams have played, so it will give a real boost. I mean, what you don't want is it's such a blowout that people in Wales start going, well, let's not play Wales.
But Wales have to start somewhere, don't
they? But they have to, yeah. So I think the imperative for them to play Wales here, and whoever might be on commentary or summarising for that game, whoever that could be, would need to make the case that you might be watching something here that looks very one-sided, but actually there's real benefit for both parts. I'm sure whoever was the summariser would make that.
That was the important thing about the cup final, was you and Andrew pointing out they all got proper jobs. They're all students. They're not full-time professionals.
Whereas I think the men's is different, and that if they had gone to France, that is a genuine test match. Caps are awarded, players would feel more comfortable, their club's about releasing their players for something worthwhile. They're playing an opposition to get a bit of a look at who they might be playing in a World Cup. Some of the new French players that are, talked about Arthur Moore, you'd be suddenly, you're on your tip sheet, you're going, don't let him run from dummy half, he's quite good. And I just think it would have been a real boost for the international game. What we've got coming up is the most horrible mix and match.
Rugby League, unbeaten. Championship, quickly. Dewsbury 12, Toulouse 56, so they're still flying high. Phantom 44, Bradford 0. Obviously, if that try had been given, the one with the forward pass, that would have been different. That one. Phantom win the Peter Fox Trophy. Halifax beat York 30 points to 6. I think York thought it was a 3 o'clock kickoff. That's why they lost that one at half 11 in the morning.
I think we said this last week as well. York getting to Wembley is massive for York.
Yeah.
And whilst I'm sure Wembley's a long way away and they're not thinking about it, that their season rests on that 80 minutes on that pitch. And the things you can do marketing wise on the back of playing in a game like that, with the greatest respect, I don't think York were ever in a position to get promoted this year.
Yeah.
But getting to Wembley is huge.
8 different try scores for Feb.
That's a good result, isn't it? I don't know what happened to Bradford. Maybe they were celebrating an OBE before.
We haven't talked about that, have we? We'll
Not a lot to say, really, other than we love Kev.
Yeah. As some wags pointed out, Bradford not used to playing on a pitch that's not wide. Sheffield, back to winning ways, beat Oldham 32-8.
Sounded like a 32-20 at the time, like a
28, sorry, yeah.
cracking.
Newcastle beat Swinton 36-30 at the bottom.
Although that was closer than it looked at one stage. Were Newcastle 30 up at one point?
30-18 at half time.
And
Wow.
Big fight back from Swinton, but not quite enough. Mr. Kellen's still crying at the bottom of the table.
The Bulldogs won away at Whitehaven 24-20.
Another great result for the under the radar Bulldogs.
London Broncos winning at Widnes. London should give all the credit to Wakefield here, obviously. Roman Navarrete and Titus Guaze with the late tries to win that game. So, up the Wakefield. Good for London. Southern Outpost. Toulouse and Fev still unbeaten, top of the table. France now we played a game more, so they're below Toulouse. As mentioned earlier, Barrow topping League One, 6 from 6, beating Rochdale 40-4. Not happening for Rochdale at the moment. Coventry Workers on the entertaining game, Workington winning 30 points to 12. Keighley 70, West Wales 12. That one looked close for a time, but that was very early in that one. London Scholars 10, Hunslet 62. Big win for Hunslet, and big win for Doncaster as well, 68-0 at the North Wales Crusaders.
3 games from the Championship on our league, all at the same time.
Excellent on Sunday.
Wow.
Father and son playing for Keighley.
Yes, setting each other up for a try. Or nice.
I'm not sure that's as exciting a news story as people think it is, really, but it's just.
It's nice though, isn't it?
It's nice.
Nice.
Celtic Cup wheelchair this weekend.
Yeah, well done Wales.
Father and son play for Wales.
There you go. Well done Wales. I don't think there's any other news apart from Fev signing everyone on loan from Super League. Scully's sent some stuff. Awards, yeah. Sir Kevin
Should we
Sinfield
finish
OBE.
on the note of the awards?
There's positivity, yeah. Sir Kevin Sinfield OBE. That's it.
For his charitable work.
Yeah.
Stephen Ball for his charitable
Nice,
work.
yes.
Lovely. Martin Blundell for his charitable work. Nice.
Lovely.
You know the people who got upset about the other one
Mm-hmm.
on social media? If they're not bothered about it, find out who nominated. Because they must have written a bloody good essay. All these people don't set up petitions. They're pointless.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to set up a petition to give an award to such and such. That's not how it works.
Tell us how you feel about that one, eh?
Well, I've been told I don't watch the show enough to people, but I've left it a bit late now to say don't watch the show anymore. But it's like the New England kit.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Do you reckon you'd be able to get a free one from someone? You must know some people in the squad.
I don't know if I want one.
Oh, you're not like you're not
Either
gonna
wear it
yeah.
or
Yeah.
either playing it or.
It's obviously like for me and Phil.
Oh yeah, like I'm not a shirt person.
No.
I'm not a
Oh, you
replica
just want
shirt.
you just want all the other stuff.
So
like
if we
collars
had a
and stuff.
Sydney Roosters shirt here, you wouldn't be interested.
If it was worn, and it was a one that was worn by a player, yes, I would. If it was just, I would have it because it's nice. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy an England shirt or a shirt. No. Again, I've got a few shirts in a box that I've played in, neatly folded in a box, but they're in a box. I haven't done that whole.
You don't want to get them framed as some kind of shrine to your illustrious career.
I don't have a particularly a house where I just want to put, hey, this is.
Look how great I am.
Yeah, I really struggle with that. I talk a lot of rubbish, and I will never deny the fact I've played for England and stuff like that. But I'm a bit weird about it. So, for Christmas, my friend, she framed my cap, which was really lovely. But I'm like, put it on my bedside table. Like, what do you do?
Hang it in the
Whereas-
smallest room.
Whereas I have had a picture from when I had a coffee on the balcony every morning in Sydney, and I looked out onto the ANZ Stadium, and the view was lovely. I've had that picture made into a canvas. So for me, that picture's lovely when people say, oh, it's a really nice picture.
Yeah.
But I know exactly where I was, why I was there, and how I was there. So, I should, just because maybe one day if I ever do have children, it's a nice thing to hand down. But no, I don't. I do like the new shirt. And I just got to point out that, in the Marine Centre, in the Leeds Rhino shop, they are selling the England shirts. But
Yeah.
what they've done is the backdrop. They've put an England men's, a women's, and a wheelchair player, which I think is fantastic. Emily Rudge is there, as big as anything, on the wall, which I just think is great. And I think the way that England are marketing all 3 games equally is brilliant. So I'm really proud of that.
And what we should say is there's a wheelchair international.
Yes, there is.
The day
England
after.
wheelchair playing Wales in Sheffield.
Sheffield.
EIS.
And that's on the BBC
Mhm.
Red Button as well, which is massive for the wheelchair game, and we're looking forward to that.
So yeah, we're done. 5 to 8. I don't think there's anything else we need to mention. Is there? So,
No,
I'm not slagging
no
off.
questions that we need
No.
answering from our
No, I don't think
illustrious.
so. No.
No, they've all switched off because I haven't.
Everyone's watching Boris. Or whatever. Do you like the word? Are you bothered by it being like the player of the match? You feel called the man of the
I
match?
still call him man of the
Yeah,
match.
Yeah. The woke. Are you one of the woke brigade that David Taylor of Kendal is against? Oh no, so, was that? Oh no, it was Tony Cunningham of Bury who was against the woke brigade. So.
Should we now start thinking about
Oh, yes,
naming
yes,
the
yes.
player of the match award after somebody like Andy Dobson?
In the cup final.
Yeah, 100%. Like, yeah, for like a Lance Todd-esque.
Mm.
Yeah.
As
Because
opposed
again,
to a commentator or a
th-
journalist.
There's not a cost involved in that. That's
No, it's just a nice.
should we not be doing something like that? You've named 3 people who you
But it's funny, isn't it?
think are
Because
pioneers. Should one of
all,
those?
yeah, but it isn't funny because all 3 of those players, if they are failed to say, would like saying this after they probably go, shut up.
Yeah, but all the
You'd
more
never
reason
actually
to
do
do
Or
it.
it.
Yeah,
force them
exactly.
to have it named after them.
No,
no, yeah.
Recognise their contribution.
Yeah.
So you can have one in the cup final, one in the grand final.
Mm-hmm.
That's the start of.
Do you
Giving
reckon
it
that we
what
should
it
also
is.
start getting the Woman of Steel points as well?
Well,
Who's going to dish them out?
That's what I mean. Like,
the Dally M's used to be awarded by the referees.
There you go.
So there is always somebody who is neutral. Who do you think
Honestly,
stood out?
You can't have that neutral. You can ask me if I was there again. 'Cause
We asked the members of the press who was here. Him.
Yeah, but I won't be able to go to the games on the rearrange because I said I couldn't let these.
Surely there'd be a legend at each woman's game. Oh, mind you, better not go there.
Club media people can give them out.
But no, yes, we should have a
leading the
definable way
women's
of
team?
women's. And who decides anyway?
well, previously we just done a 3 vote, 1, 2, 3 vote for players.
And vote for your mates, yeah.
Oh no.
Like the men did that time.
Yeah, I was so tempted to do that. Then I found out that they were
Did they
going to
publish them?
they publicise them to each team, and I was like,
You don't want to be like David. What was
no, I
David?
do though. I do.
The coal train. That was great.
Listen, the girls that are genuinely good and deserved it would get enough votes genuinely. So 1 or 2 people like me would just be there for comedy
You
value.
just ruin it.
But the only
forever.
comedy value would be to myself.
Yeah,
Ruin
yeah,
it for everyone.
you would. Somebody who's always got to upset the apple cart.
I voted Rudge in the last one and she got nominated for it. So
It's really good, isn't she?
she's nice. She's a nice person too.
She was brilliant in the semi-final.
She's great.
Did you pick up an injury in that semi-final?
My ego got bruised, got damaged. I had just come out of a 10-day isolation the morning of that semi-final.
Which you can read about in the news.
Yeah, I should never have played, but I offered myself up for it.
Because when I shouted to you, "Are you knackered?" I didn't mean like, "Are you tired?" I thought, "Have you done an injury to yourself?" That was the that was all the post match. That was the post match
I
injury.
jarred my thumb, and my nail was hanging off halfway through. But I jarred my thumb. That was about it. But mostly just my ego.
You'll be
Yeah.
back bigger and stronger.
I'm definitely bigger.
Well, that we all laughed a lot.
I've been told
He
I
hasn't
am.
finished yet.
I've been told I am. But you know what? There's a lot of money and effort in this body. It's taken a lot of investment. I tell you that for sure.
And on that
And on
bombshell.
that.
It's always a pleasure, Danica.
Yeah.
The very best of luck for the future.
You'll be in again soon.
And again soon.
Yeah.
Enjoy your role on our major broadcaster with the Women's International.
I know.
Should you be involved?
Then ring me and ask.
I don't like to ask you in now. You're a major international TV source because we don't pay. So.
Listen, I've told you, I know where I've started. Do you know what I mean? I know
Everyone
where roots
remembers
are.
their community club. Yeah,
I
we'll
do.
donate one of your shirts. We'll auction it off with a big
I've
raffle.
7 of them.
I think I upset Dodgy the other week and I said to him, yeah, we'll invite you back because you're the
Yeah.
But that was true.
Well, thanks.
When are Leeds playing you?
Sunday.
Are you?
Bradford on Sunday
Oh.
at the Mobile Rocket Stadium.
You know, that's right, because
I can tell you all the fixtures,
the
just you
the
wait
fixtures
there.
on the website are there, but they don't have any venues on there because I didn't know, because I'm actually working on something.
Poignant game for you.
Yeah.
I would have gone, but I'm working on something now.
So this one is an interesting weekend. So we've got Wigan Cass,
Yeah, because all the fixtures are
Now we're
the
mixing up-
crossover
we're
ones.
mixing
Yeah,
up
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Warrington Wakefield,
Yeah.
Bradford Leeds, York St Helens, at the Mobile Rocket, oi oi. Then on the Monday night we've got these ones coming in, Featherstone and Huddersfield at Odsal Stadium. And on that note, you're deathly silent.
I have no
Well,
idea.
no, because I'm just confused. But no, I would have been there on Sunday, but unfortunately I've got to work now because that pays and.
The women's game does then.
Like you,
Yes, like the
you,
players.
Tell me about
Like
it.
the players.
like you, I don't get paid for this rubbish. Well, thank you very much for watching. I mean, all the people on YouTube, all